All right, we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Pull Hook Golf, the podcast. I'm Matt Cook, and tonight we've got a packed show yet again. I'm going to try to keep this quick since it is a solo episode. But that being said, we've got on tonight's episode Scotty Sheffler's dominance at the RBC Heritage. It's continuing, folks. We're also going to talk about Nelly Corda's dominance and how that's even more impressive than Scotty Sheffler right now. And then we've got the upcoming Zurich Classic. We've got upcoming Live Golf Adelaide, which is their biggest event of the year. So we've got to talk about that at the end here. We always save the best for last. But without further ado, I do want to give a shout out and thank you to our sponsor, Swanee's Golf, for sponsoring. I mean, always just bringing the heat on the gear. I mean, look at the Swanee's hat. It is clean. The hoodie quarter zip is one of my favorites. I absolutely love this from Swanee's. But folks, as a listener of the podcast and of this live stream on millions.co, you can go ahead and utilize promo code PullHookGolf25 at checkout to get 25% off your entire order at swanees.co. And I will tell you, Swanee's has been fantastic. I had a golf event this past weekend that was the Refuse to Lose Cup. Now, this is for the V Foundation for Cancer Research. It was a charity event, but it was set up like a Ryder Cup style. So you play best ball the first day, then actually you play 36 the first day. I can't recall the last time I played 36 holes, but it was awesome. We played best ball in the morning, played a two-man scramble in the afternoon against two opponents, and then also the next day was the individual match play, which I absolutely thrive in. I loved it. It was fantastic. And here's the thing. Swanee's gave us a full look for our team. I'm going to put that up here. Look at these classy gentlemen. I'm sitting there in the middle with the Swanee's bucket hat. Kept me cool throughout the entire tournament. This was at the end of the round after the 36 hole day. Look how good those shirts ended up coming through, and it was awesome. So I do want to once again thank Swanee's Golf for that. But here's the thing, folks. I still got a little bit of game. Still got a little bit because I went 3-0. It was very challenging because in the morning we had two really good opponents in best ball. My partner was in his pocket a little bit, and so I had to make sure that I was putting the ball in play, getting those pars, and a couple birdies dropped in there as well. And then for the scramble, we went up, and each time we switched up the teams. So in the afternoon, I had and these are all guys that I just got to meet. So it was an interesting experience from that standpoint, but what a great group of dudes. And I was in this group in the afternoon, and these two guys that we were playing were top notch. One guy was hitting the ball 310. The other guy did not miss a putt. They rolled in 3 putts that were deeper than 40 feet, and then they knocked in another one that was over 60 feet away. And we were those were all for birdies, of course. And so we're sitting there like, dude, what do we have to do in order to compete with these guys? Jesus. And we were just hanging in there, hanging in. And then we caught a little bit of fire. We were one down with 5 to play. And I was just like, we're going to have to go on a run here. And me and my partner, I told him, I was like, hey, let's lock in right now. And sure enough, what ended up happening? You're goddamn right. We went absolutely off in the last 5 holes. We went 6 under in the last 5. I threw in an eagle in there, and it was just, they were devastated, absolutely devastated. So we pulled off that victory. And then comes Sunday, I started off strong in the individual match play. And I'm one of those guys that I grew up as an athlete. I played every sport excluding golf. By 13, I discovered golf and started playing from there. But I've always competed against somebody in golf tournaments, it was always a struggle for me to wrap my head around just playing the golf course. And it's funny, in the singles, I'm with my partner, and he's like, I play the golf course, and I'm like, I'm the opposite. I play the individual. So I look them dead in the eye, and I want to make sure that I'm matching them step for step. The one fault you can get into is if you don't expect them to do something crazy. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given in match play was expect them to make every single putt, and expect them to hit an incredible recovery shot, because then you're never sitting there going, oh, I've got this hole in the bank, thinking about, okay, I'm going to be one up. Okay. So birdied first 2 holes, got off to a 2-up lead, got it up to 3 up. After 4, ended up having another birdie in there. And then sure enough, he came back with a couple of his own and got it back to 1 up, or he got it back to 1 up. Then from there, I shut that door and ended up winning 6 and 5. So there was quite a few more birdies along the way. And once again, apparently the old man here, I still got a little bit of game. Haven't played that well. And that's what's funny. I mean, people always talk about going into these scramble tournaments and everything. I hadn't played that well in ages, but we started playing a lot during last week and led right into that refuse to lose cup. So here's the funny part. We, as a team, most of the guys Saturday night went out to a comedy show out here in Phoenix, Arizona. And sure enough, a lot of them got a little hammered up. Well, most of the guys showed up. However, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this before, but as Golfer HD, I know you're out there because you threw in a little let's go. Certainly, I don't know if anybody else has been in this situation to where they had a person, like a teammate in one of these tournaments, just not show up for their tee time. So this is what happened to us. We ended up, and it was our captain who didn't show up. Got a little too hammered, a little bit too beat up out there in the streets, and sure enough, did not show up. Well, guess what? I won. My playing partner won. I believe 4 others ended up winning, so we had 6 total that won. Only 1 guy lost. And in the final day, and we were down a point, we came back and tied for the victory. However, we don't have playoffs and so forth for some of these tournaments, so it was going to be a putt-off between the 2 captains of the 2 teams. The tournament organizers just decided, no, we're giving it to the other team because your captain did not show up today. So we ended up forfeiting the victory, which was quite disappointing. But I don't know. Has anybody ever had that happen to where, like, I've always been the guy that if I'm going to get trashed, I'm still showing up to that tee time. Like, I'm still going to make sure that I am there. So that was quite interesting. That was a new one for me. I wasn't even mad at, like, the tournament director. Some of our guys were chirping at him, being like, that's not fair. We should be able to still compete in a playoff, blah, blah, blah. So I was pretty cool with it because I'm like, man, that sucks for the person that he was supposed to play against in single matches. Like, that's what you're there for. You want to compete against somebody else. So the other guy just played a normal round of golf instead of playing in a match play, which was pretty disappointing. A little bit of bad form there by the captain. But I'll move on from the good old Refuse to Lose Cup. It was out at Whirlwind, which is a great golf course out here. And again, just the old man still has a little bit of game left, I guess. Now, let's get into the RBC Heritage, to where I'm shocked. I am shocked that Scotty Sheffler was not exhausted from that Masters victory. The guy flies back to Dallas, okay, after the Masters. Flies back, gets hammered at a dive bar, then flies all the way out to the RBC Heritage. I'm like, last week, I didn't know if he was going to be playing or not. Well, sure enough, Scotty Sheffler plays in the RBC Heritage and dominates yet again. Guys, We've been saying it and saying it and saying it. Enjoy this time. I've started to see more golf pundits that are out there that are now on the same page as us, to where it's like, man, let's enjoy what is happening right now. And I've seen a lot of comments too on Twitter, on Instagram, and so forth, that really everybody is in the same ballpark when it comes to, appreciating Scotty Sheffler now, where it's no longer, oh, Scotty Sheffler, boring personality. It is now, we are watching greatness on the golf course, and you can't take that for granted. I feel like a lot of us took it for granted with Tiger Woods, to where we knew what we were witnessing, but at the same time, it was like we just thought it was always going to be there. And I think after the dominance of Tiger, we've kind of gotten into this world where it's like, okay, everybody is competing at a super high level. This is great. So Scotty Sheffler is right now, he's him. He's Himothy. And I couldn't be more happy with the state of golf right now, especially on the PGA Tour, to where, throw in the live guys in there and see what would happen. Hence the Masters. God, Scotty Sheffler wins by multiple shots. So this isn't if those guys were over here, Scotty wouldn't be performing. No, Scotty's performing at that type of level. Again, strokes gained, way better than everybody else. He is phenomenal right now in terms of, and I called it from going back to last year. I was like, if Scotty Sheffler figures out the putter, and I've been saying a lot about sports psychologists and so forth, or a performance coach, he's got a putting coach. He's got the TaylorMade team that built him up, that TaylorMade spider, and spec'd it all out for him, and he's rolling the rock. But what's crazy is he's rolling the rock, and it still can be improved. Like, he's still got a little bit of wiggle room to improve with his putting, and imagine if he does. Scotty Sheffler. Again, just absolutely locked in right now. He wants as many wins as he can get before that baby comes, but I think that might be the last tournament he plays until the baby comes, which I believe is due in a week or two at this point. So hopefully we do get the Scotty Sheffler that is not affected by the first child curse. Once again, I was talking about it this morning in the gym. I'm like, Scotty's one of those guys where, and his wife, I don't think she's one of these wives that is going to be super needy. Like, look at poor Brooks Koepka. Guy looks like he hasn't slept in a year. So you've got these different type of relationships, I should say. And that's not to knock on anybody, because, having your first child, the child comes first at that point. I mean, it's a different experience than that's what everybody's told me anyways. And that's where I just feel like Scotty Sheffler is going to still be at that level. If he can do what he did at the RBC Heritage and come in exhausted after boozing at the bar and came into the tournament and all of a sudden just rattles off a 2-shot victory. Was it 2 shots or 3 shots? Oh gosh, I can't remember at this point. It's not in my notes. But that being said, Scotty Sheffler dominates RBC Heritage. He's dominating the world of golf right now, okay? Here's some notables from the RBC Heritage. Sahith Theegala. Who would have thought that he'd play well at Harbour Town? Now remember, Harbour Town is demanding off the tee. You got to have really good iron game because those greens are so small. So Sahith Theegala finishes second alone at 16 under. I told you guys last weekend, my trainer was gone. He was with Wyndham Clark in good old Myrtle Beach there at Harbour Town, and he was working him out throughout the week. And I said at the time, I'm like, whenever he's with him, Wyndham tends to play pretty damn well. I just didn't know how Wyndham was going to play at Harbour Town. It's not necessarily a course that fits his strengths per se, but he played phenomenal. He was T3. If he had removed that first day to where he shot +1, he probably would have been competing with Scotty Sheffler. And I think he's the type of guy right now that is super competitive, like one of those elite athletes to where he wants to take on Scotty Sheffler. He wants that challenge, and that's pushing him to become even that much better. So I still expect big, big things from Wyndham Clark this year. But a guy that was surprising that hasn't had a good year, had a pretty good Masters, I'd say. And, might be the time that he turns it around is Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay was also T3 along with Wyndham Clark at 15 under. We've got a Justin Thomas sighting, which is nice to see at T5. He was 14 under. And then Ludwig Oberg, this was the guy that I picked for the week. I was like, man, this course fits him so perfectly. And sure enough, the course fit him perfectly. However, he faded on the final day. I don't know whether that was the weather or not. Who knows? But he finishes T10 at 12 under. And then Will Zalatoris, he just looked tired. I was wondering if he was going to continue from the Masters into Harbour Town because, again, kind of fits his game as well. And he just looked tired to me out there this week, which is okay. It's understandable. Guy came over a... That's not the right wording, but he overcame. There we go. He overcame his back injury from last year that he took off a ton of time, had the surgery on his back. So I think Will Zalatoris is still getting into golf form, and that's exciting to have a Will Zalatoris that right now is trending in the right direction. Again, he just looked pretty tired to me. And that wraps up the RBC Heritage. Like I said, going to try to keep tonight a little bit on the shorter side. But that being said, we've got Nelly Corda on the women's side, who's more dominant than even Scotty Sheffler right now. And if you don't believe that that is as impressive, if not even more impressive, she is, the female game, normally the field and the competitiveness out there is pretty even. You tend to see from all different countries, the women all kind of competing at the same level. Well, Nelly Corda has separated herself. And I've read a lot of articles over the past day or two around the fact that Nelly Corda deserves to have her Caitlin Clark moment. If you're not familiar with Caitlin Clark, she is the basketball player for Iowa that just got drafted into the WNBA, that has taken over sports, taken over the internet, blew up the TV ratings for the NCAA women's basketball tournament, and is just an absolute phenom. People are obsessed with her, and certainly Nelly Corda deserves to have that moment. I'm in agreement with everybody that wrote an article out there about how Nelly Corda deserves to have her Caitlin Clark moment. And the one thing that I found interesting was that even after the victory, because she dominated at the Chevron Championship, but that's the first major, by the way, for the women, for those of you that are not familiar. But Nelly Corda, that was her fifth win in a row. Fifth win in a row. We're kind of seeing it from Scotty Sheffler as well. So golf is in such a great place, from the PGA Tour to the LPGA Tour. We'll get to live golf later on. But this is exciting stuff. And I love witnessing greatness. Like growing up, I hated Michael Jordan. I'll be the first one to admit it. I was a Knicks fan growing up as a kid. Used to absolutely hate Michael Jordan, but I hated him because he was so great. And then as I got a little bit older, all of a sudden I realized that he was pure greatness, and I loved Michael Jordan. Wanted everything Michael Jordan, and realized that he was the greatest basketball player of all time, and really just appreciated him in the 90s. Now, that being said, I grew an appreciation for just appreciating, even if it goes against people that I want to win or see win, but I appreciate greatness. Absolutely love it. Love to see it. It's great for the game, and dominance is great for the game. Anybody that says otherwise, like, when you've got a super team or an individual is dominating every single golf tournament, it's boring. Absolutely not. Love seeing greatness. And I think a lot of people appreciate the greatness that we are seeing, especially from Nelly Corda. Now, she did call out after her win the TV coverage and said, hey, we need a primetime TV partner. We need a platform for these tournaments. And I have to agree with Nelly. I think they deserve it. I think women's sports is becoming at such a high level right now that we are kind of moving into this new era of women athletes. And the LPGA Tour, I've been saying it for years. Ever since I started this damn podcast over 2 years ago, I was like, Nelly Corda is my favorite female golfer. She has the best swing in golf. I absolutely, if I was to teach a boy or a girl a golf swing, it would be Nelly Corda's golf swing. It is just so pure, so good, so on plane. Face doesn't rotate hard. It is so awesome to see. She hits it with power. She's just, and you hear it every single year at the PNC Championship where she teams up with her dad, goes up against John Daly and his son, Tiger and Charlie, and so on and so forth. And everybody raves about her, that this girl just doesn't miss, that her golf game is so good. And that's where we need to appreciate, once again, what she's doing. And she's in her prime right now. So this is fun to watch. Can't wait to see the rest of the year and what that holds. Hopefully she stays healthy. Hopefully, like I said, Scotty doesn't come down with the first kid virus, and hopefully he continues to play the way that he is. But this was the most watched Chevron Championship since 2010. So people were clearly watching and loving that, but there was also some real prize money too. It wasn't a tournament to where, the winner gets $300,000. It wasn't that. Nelly Corda won $1.2 million. She was probably already a millionaire, let's be honest, but to win that tournament and to just get a mill just like that, whew, that's pretty sweet if you ask me. All right, quick sip of water. Here we go. Let's keep it moving, keep it grooving. So awesome to see. Awesome to see the prize money. We need a better platform for the ladies. We need it. You need it. Everybody needs it. We need to see it. We want more Nelly Corda. So keep it up, Nelly. We're going to be watching. I'm going to be watching. All right. Let's talk about the upcoming Zurich Classic this week, which is the team event for the PGA Tour. And I sat there and I'm like, the players seem to really like this event. It's a chance for them to team up with a buddy of theirs and to play in this tournament. Normally, I kind of check out as a fan when it comes to this event, when it comes to the two-man teams, and there's no real kind of, there's no branding behind it. We're just seeing two random guys play together on the PGA Tour. And then I started to think about it a little bit further, and I'm like, that's kind of what I did with the Ryder Cup deal. Like, we were two-man teams. Granted, we were a team of 8 and 7 because our captain didn't arrive to the Sunday rounds. But, looking at that, I'm like, maybe I should give this a little bit more respect since the players seem to like it so much. Because they do. The PGA Tour guys, you talk to them, they love this tournament. They love teaming up with their buddy. And the first round and the third round are best ball. And then it's alternate shot for the second round and fourth round. Winner gets up to like 30 under par. Ends up being a great event. But last year's winners, Davis Riley and Nick Hardy. Okay. But there are some notable teams this year, and I kind of broke them out. I'm like, all right, if we branded this a little bit, this could be even more fun. We've got the Team England bros, Matt and Alex Fitzpatrick. We've got Team Ireland with Rory and Shane Lowry. We've got Team California with Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele. We've got Team Canada with Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin. We've got Team South Korea with S.H. Kim and Sang-moon Bae. We got Team USA Bros with Parker and Pearson Coody. And then we've just got a good team in Sahith Theegala and Will Zalatoris. So, again, it would be kind of cool if there was, like, branding behind each of the teams. And, like, I know the Live Golf guys are probably sitting there going, yeah, that's why we got Live Golf. I get it. Team. I played college golf. I love my college teammates. Like, it was fun playing as a team in college. And it's fun play. I played in high school, too. So it's like, I'm used to the team aspect. It's one of the only sports that you go from team in high school, team in college, to all of a sudden you get to the pro level and it's all individuals. I get the arguments, okay? That being said, I would love to see a little bit more of this, and I would love to see the match play side of things. I'm annoyed that we haven't had match play yet. We need a good match play event. And this potentially could have been something like that. All right, let's move into, and by the way, Zurich Classic happening in New Orleans. Love that for them. But let's get into the PGA Tour and Live Golf news before we get into the biggest event of the year for Live Golf. All right, we've got, and this is key here, we've got Rory McIlroy. And Rory McIlroy, all of a sudden, Webb Simpson steps down from the PGA Tour Policy Board. And by the way, last week, when the report came out about Rory talking in regards to his decision that he's, well, not decision, but him talking about the fact that he's never going to live, right? That was the big news last week. We talked about it on the show last week, Butsy and I. Well, Rory McIlroy, and by the way, last week I got a message, and it might have even been the week prior now that I'm thinking about it, to where I ended up finding out somebody connected within the PGA Tour realm, might be a parent of a player, was chirping me a little bit about one of my Twitter posts and saying that Rory was definitely never going to go to Live. And I'm like, hey, unless you're an expert, you can't really say definitely, absolutely, 100%. And sure enough, found out that I was talking to somebody who was in the know and was actually in the Players Lounge that day, and heard Rory talking to officials and so forth. So Rory has decided that he is not going to go over to Live, and it's even more official now because he's jumping onto the PGA Tour board. People don't realize that this was a little bit orchestrated, okay? This was not by happenstance. This is not Webb Simpson just saying, oh, I'm resigning from the board. That's the way that certainly they want to make it out to be, especially in the media and so forth, that this is just a natural progression. But even then I found out that, this was something that Jay Monahan had been working on, wanted Rory to get back into it. Rory has a pretty sweet deal now as he's moving back into that, and he's going to be a part of the future of the PGA Tour moving forward. And I think that's the best part of this story, is that Rory's going to be a part of it. It felt weird when all of a sudden, because him and Tiger have the TGL coming up at the beginning of next year. Rory was 100% a PGA Tour guy through and through. He was the sacrificial lamb, right? So he was the one that was the face of the PGA Tour versus Live Golf. And he got a little bit astray from that whole entire thing because of the framework agreement between the PGA Tour and PIF. He really felt like he was let down by Jay. Really, Jay turned his back on him, like all these things. And these are public things that Rory has talked about. So it's not like these are just insider types of things that I'm getting from sources. Like, Rory's talked pretty openly about all of this. And he even was on an interview at the beginning of the year with former football players over in Europe, to where some of them he idolized, and he was talking very openly, talking very positively about Live Golf. So yes, the Live Golf rumors, were they real? In a way, yes. But I mean, I had heard from multiple sources around Rory McIlroy, and these are sources that have come through with multiple sightings and so forth from the PGA Tour to Live Golf, that I believe and I trust. So I will just say that they have told me that he was considering that move. I don't think he could get over the fact that he despises of Live so much, but for close to $1 billion, anybody's going to seriously consider that type of money and have to sit there and write out some pros and cons, figure it all out, especially if they feel like they're the piece of the chessboard that they're actually going to move the merger forward. So if they sign, then a merger is definitely going to happen. That certainly felt like that was kind of what Rory was up to. And I don't know. I really thought that, this could be a bargaining tool for Rory to get back onto the board. And now look at us here. Rory's back on the board. He's going to be making a shit ton of money, having not only equity in the PGA Tour enterprises, but also being an owner within it as well, which that goes hand in hand with having equity into something. So he squashes all the Live rumors, staying PGA Tour guy. He will once again become a bit of the face, and he might be the guy that actually moves this merger forward, because him rejoining, it could be getting close to being a done deal, and Rory's going to make sure that this gets pushed through. Now, as we talk about Live Golf, there is the biggest event of the year for Live Golf, and this is Live Golf Adelaide. There is not a bigger event that Live Golf throws throughout the entire year. They've even rebuilt or designed a par 3 hole. We saw it last year that very much so is similar to the Waste Management Phoenix Open with the 16th hole there. But it is their party hole. They're going absolutely nuts, screaming, yelling. They've got big boards showing the players and their information, and they've got walk-up songs. So it is an awesome event. I loved this last year because I know the Aussies, because we have several audience members that have shared with me around the fact that, and Mook, you're getting a shout out right now. He's one of them. They were throwing listening parties for Pull Hook Golf on Fridays and having pizza and some beer and sitting back listening to the podcast. And they would tell me, they're like, we've been starved of really good professional golf for a very long time. And you know what? As I started to open my eyes to this, I'm like, this is great that they get this Live Golf event. And even the guys over in Australia that don't love Live Golf, they still go to the event. They have a good time because they want to see some of the top players in the world. And I do think that with Live Golf Adelaide, they get the opportunity to do that. They get, obviously, Greg Norman from Australia. He's an icon over there. He's not as beat up with the image and the media, really his public image, I should say, over here in the States. He is looked at a little bit more so as an icon over there, as he's from Australia, and rightfully so. He's one of the greatest golfers to ever come out of Australia. He probably is the greatest to ever come out of Australia. Like, I have a tough time saying that because Adam Scott, and granted, Adam Scott hasn't won as much as Greg Norman, but I don't know. Adam Scott to me is also Mr. Australia. So that being said, Australia, one of the reasons I was talking to somebody well connected within the PGA Tour world, and one of the reasons, so there's some politics as to why the PGA Tour isn't over in Australia. and doesn't run an event over there. And one of the other reasons, on top of the political side, which I'm not going to get into the politics, but I remember this too. When they said it, I was like, oh shit, that makes a ton of sense. Because I remember UFC fighters bitching about when they went over to Australia as to how much taxes Australia was taking from the fighters of their prize money. And it was 50% of their winnings they were taking for taxes. So big issue. And Australia does not waive that for sports. So I believe they do for some, from what I've heard. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but certainly I don't know. Oh, here we go. I've got, let's see here. So I believe we got an Aussie here. Jake, I don't know if you're an Aussie or not. Jake Hauer, he commented here, Peter Thompson by far, 5 majors. See, I got to brush up on my Australia history here of famous golfers. My apologies, Jake. I do apologize on that one. I did not know Peter Thompson, but clearly if he's got 5 majors, yeah, you're absolutely right. I will brush up on my Australian history here as well. But also, again, going back to 50% taxes, like, athletes don't want to have to pay that. I know Australia is awesome. It's a great place to go and experience. And I mean, I am all for having great golf over in Australia, but I'm just bringing up one of the topics that was brought up to me by a representative of the PGA Tour, and as to one of the reasons why they don't throw an event over there. And so that to me made a ton of sense, right? Players don't want to go over there and give 50% up for taxes and travel all the way over. I'm sure guys like Adam Scott and so forth would love to go back home and be able to play in a PGA Tour event, but there's the Australian Open. There are events that go on. It's just, yeah, the Live Golf Adelaide is one of the coolest events that you could go to if you're going to go to a Live Golf event. I've heard it from numerous people, especially, like I said, some of our Aussie fans and audience members. And again, guys, if you have questions or anything that you want to throw into the comments, feel free to do so. If you're on Twitter, go ahead and just add that into, if you're watching this, go ahead and add that into the feed. If you're on YouTube, add it to the comments. If you're on millions.co, go ahead and add that to the comments there as well. All right. So as I continue to go down this list for Live Golf Adelaide, and this is where I'm going to spend the majority of this episode, at least, going over Live Golf Adelaide, because once again, it is the biggest event. I would say if I'm Live Golf, I turn this into the championship event, that this is the one that I don't love that it's just in the middle of the season. Like, how cool would it be if this was for the individual championship or even the team championship? I think that would be really, really cool to have that, or at least go back to Adelaide. I think that would be money, or potentially some of the other areas within Australia. All right. Defending champion, Taylor Gooch. Not going to win it. Telling you right now, not going to win it. I will bet anybody any amount of money it's not going to happen. Taylor Gooch is not winning Adelaide this year. Why? Because he is not performing at the level that he did last year. Making the range coats kind of look like geniuses for getting a trade in for good old Matthew Wolff. Whether you love Matthew Wolff, hate him, or think his game sucks, he's actually played just as good as Taylor Gooch so far this year. And here's the thing. Some of these guys that Cam Smith, Mark Leishman, the Aussies, you could tell last year that Cam Smith was a bit rattled. He was a bit nervous out there in Adelaide. Like, after the first round, started to get settled in. He ended up finishing in the top 10. But Cam Smith, this is a golf tournament that really should be won by Cam Smith. And I'm not just saying that because of Australia. We did get a little comment here from Anti-Live. Taylor Gooch is overrated. He had a hell of a year last year. And I'm not going to take anything away from him because he had a hell of a stretch. Guy still has not won on American soil, which that's a whole nother topic. But Taylor Gooch is not on the same run that he was last year. He got hot. He was playing golf courses that you normally don't see on the PGA Tour. Some courses that are a bit shorter that you really need to have a great iron game for. You've got to be accurate off of the tee. You don't need to be a bomber of the golf ball. And those are the courses that Taylor Gooch really, really did well in last year. And Adelaide's one of them. Adelaide, shit. If you look at the leaderboard for last year's Adelaide tournament, you're going to realize that this course is not meant for bombers of the golf ball. Here's the top 10. So Taylor Gooch obviously won last year. Anabon Lahiri was second. You had Patrick Reed, Cam Smith, Cameron Tringali, Pat Perez. Peter Uihlein is a bomber of the golf ball, so that's the one exception there. Dean Burmester and Charles Schwartzel, okay? None of those guys outside of Peter Uihlein are bombers of the golf ball. Just bottom line. A lot of those guys are good iron players. And you're going to see it this year. I think Cam Smith is due for a really good event. I don't think he's going to be as nervous as he was last year. I think they were kind of taken aback by just how much the Aussie fans really embraced this event last year for Live Golf Adelaide. And again, his first round last year, he really struggled within that first round, and then played 2 good rounds thereafter. But he's coming off of the Masters. He's got such a good iron game. His driver is the issue. So if he's not hitting a ton of drivers, I think Cam Smith is going to do pretty damn well this week. It's going to be one of those guys that is accurate with their irons that I think is going to play well here this week. So the defending team champion is the Four Aces. That's not going to happen again this year. I'm sorry, Four Aces. Dustin, love you. But the Four Aces are not going to, they're not going to do it. I'm really curious to see how John Rahm's team plays this track. I think Legion 13 is going to be right up there, and the Crushers are going to be up there as well. But man, I just don't see how anybody that is one of the bombers out there, like Koepka didn't play great out there. Dustin Johnson, I think, was 10th. You've got a bunch of those top level guys, let's call them, top of the class, that a lot of these golf courses are not really meant for them. You heard it from Brooks Koepka before the Masters that the first event that he felt like was a big boy track was Doral. So these guys have kind of lost their superpowers in a way. A lot of the big hitters, Bryson DeChambeau, Bryson didn't play well here last year either. So again, but Anabon Lahiri did, Paul Casey is going to play well. So again, the Crushers are probably the team to beat. But I'm going to say this. So we're going to do golf picks, but louder, but we're switching it up. It's no longer going to be picking the last place player and the last place team. So here we go. Golf picks, but louder. Golf picks, but louder. The individual player is, so I'm picking Cam Smith this week. If you couldn't tell by the lead into this, I think Cam Smith is going to break out. If he gets the ball in play, and I don't think he's going to be as nervous in that first round as he was last year, I think he's going to come home with it because some decent-sized greens out there, and Cam Smith, if you watched him last year, literally made everything. Literally made everything. And we got a comment from Jake here. So Terrell should perform well here, I think. I do too. I think the dark horse in this, which can't really call them a dark horse, they're one of the top teams, is that Legion 13 team. But you're right. Terrell Hatton will play good this week as well. He obviously didn't play there last year, so he's playing a new course for the very first time. That's always a little bit challenging, just from a performance and results standpoint. But I do think this course does fit Terrell pretty gosh darn good. John Rahm, I'm very curious to see. And then Caleb Surratt. Caleb Surratt is a hell of an iron player. So I definitely am curious. But the team that I'm going with for my golf picks, Pallader, Ripper GC. I know. I'm going full Aussie today. I got a feeling that, after last year, it was a bit of a shell shock to those guys. I don't think any of those guys played well in the first round. They were just overwhelmed by the homeland support, that there were so many people that were supporting them, and they just got a little bit shell-shocked coming out the gates. It happens. It happens to athletes. They get too worked up, too excited, and you think it just happens to, amateurs and people getting, and you're playing in a scramble, you get all excited, you play like crap the first day. It's like, that stuff happens. And even to the pros. But as I mentioned, I think this is going to be an Aussie Fest this week. I hope it is, because the Aussie fans deserve it. You really do. I know you're really upset about the state of golf outside of Live Golf. So a lot of you hate the PGA Tour just because of what it represents. And I'm okay with that. But that being said, do watch out for the dark horse being Legion 13. I think those guys have a legitimate shot of winning another event this year. And then the Crushers. I mean, the Crushers are the favorite. But again, I think either Ripper GC or Legion 13 are going to do it. Who do you guys think? I mean, who do you got this week outside of, Jake, you've got Terrell Hatton, it sounds like. But if anybody wants to chime in with a little bit more around who they think is going to be on top of this leaderboard this week at Live Golf Adelaide, next week, probably going to have, next week for this show will be live. So not only did I play in a tournament this weekend, and that was exhausting, 36 holes. Don't recall the last time I did that, but Butsy was in Florida playing all week long. And I didn't talk to him about what event that he was playing in, but he played a ton of golf. It was one of those golf influencer deals, I believe. His sponsor was out there and so forth. So he certainly, shout out to Butsy, but I wanted to give him the week off. And certainly next week, we've got a special venue. And I will get more into that. You'll see some promo stuff for it coming up this week. I just want to confirm it tomorrow because we planned it just about a month ago around this location. And for those of you, if you want a little hint or an Easter egg, it's where John Rahm did his interview with the Subpar podcast. So there's a little Easter egg there for you. And going to see... next week should be interesting, but I was going to say, if I have the green screen, I'll go ahead and throw up the Live Golf Adelaide up there as my background next week. Show my support. I know that's going to piss off a lot of you PGA Tour guys, anti-Live. I get it. You're going to absolutely hate anytime I talk about Live Golf, but that's okay. And then the other thing that I will just mention as we kind of wrap up this show, I'm still not done going after these terrible Live Golf accounts. I don't know what it is. I have to call them out. I have to call their BS because they're just not educated. Like today, there was an account that they were talking about, oh, I have no idea why Bryson DeChambeau, genuinely, why does Bryson DeChambeau get hatred? Why do people not like Bryson DeChambeau? And it's like, dude, have you been living under a rock? This is somebody that claims that they're in the know of golf. And it's like, you clearly are not, because when it comes down to it, everybody that's in the know knows the stories of Bryson DeChambeau. And here's the crazy thing. I'm even somebody that, I've been converted over the past couple of months to becoming a Bryson fan, because I've talked with not only golf influencers, but also people within the golf world, of the professional side. And let me say that some people within the live golf side, and it really seems like Bryson has matured. He gets it now, and he's no longer the person that he was, the immature Bryson early in his career and on the PGA Tour for the most part, because he berated. And it was funny too, because as we're talking about this literally over the weekend, I'm introduced to one of the players within the tournament I played in, and he's telling me about the Brysons Rep, and he's talking about Bryson and Brysons Rep at Cobra, his personal R&D guy, and the one who is building all of his clubs for him and everything. And this is quite interesting. On his last day, where Bryson went to go pick up all the equipment that they had built for him, the number was in the $100,000 range of equipment that they had built for Bryson. Bryson went to go get it before his contract ran out. And sure enough, they locked the door of the storage area and didn't let him in, and let his contract expire. And then he never got any of the equipment that they had built for him over that entire period of time. So pretty crazy stuff that I heard. And again, these stories are out there. I mean, from yelling at kids after rounds because they asked for his autograph, to berating his caddy, to club manufacturers, to club reps. I mean, list goes on and on. But his PR team and him, they've done a very good job of really changing his public image in a lot of ways. And I really enjoyed him at the Masters this year. Thought he was phenomenal. And here's the thing, everybody deserves a second chance. And I'm the type of person that, you show me something different, and I'm going to give you credit for that. I'm not going to sit there and just hold a grudge against you for previous transgressions and things that you've done. And then somebody brought up Tiger Woods, and they're like, Tiger Woods, look at the media. It's how the media treats people, that, after all his transgressions and everything. It's like, do you remember what Tiger Woods went through when all of that broke over Thanksgiving? I mean, when all of a sudden all the hookers and everything, and granted, he doesn't want to hear that stuff anymore, but there's an HBO documentary like talking about his life and how screwed up it was for his childhood and everything that went on, and then all the women and everything. So no, the media destroyed Tiger Woods, but media also loves second chances, and they love a great comeback story. And Tiger's in his twilight right now. Tiger is the icon, and he's back to being back up on that pedestal in a lot of ways. So just, if you're going to be out there commenting and doing stuff on social media and pretend to be, an authority within the space, or somebody, like, do your homework, like actually do research, and don't be just one-sided and biased around everything. I mean, it's funny too, because even some of the biased PGA Tour accounts are pretty logical about everything. Like, it's crazy that Live Golf has this weird social media fan base that has no clue what the hell they're talking about. But for the Live fans that are out there, that are real Live Golf fans, you guys are the real ones, and you're the ones that are listening to this podcast. And I appreciate you guys because you guys are the ones that are like, don't really care whether or not it's PGA Tour, Live Golf. Like, I just love golf. And those are the fans. I've talked with numerous audience members of this podcast, and that's been the consensus, is that, they don't get caught up in a lot of this back and forth, but they can't stand, even the Live Golf fans can't stand how biased these Live accounts are. Like, and that's what I'm trying to explain to some of these accounts by calling them out, that it's like, hey, people want real authenticity. They don't want you just to lie and just say everything positive about Live Golf. That's not the real world. That's not what we're in. This is a 3-year startup so far. It is a disruptive entity that split a lot of the best players in the world away from the PGA Tour. There's going to be some bad blood there. And granted, on both sides, but the whole thing is that Live Golf was created and they're the ones that disrupted. PGA Tour's been here. So PGA Tour is always going to have a little bit more slack when it comes to that. But it's like, just be realistic. I've talked very constructively and very poignant about the PGA Tour, their mistakes in all of this and everything. And I continue to call out people on the PGA Tour ongoing. But again, these accounts are dry. Like, I'm perfectly calm about it, but I'm just like, some of the stuff that gets said is insane. So just be a real one is what I have to say. Just be real, be authentic, like know what you're doing. And especially if you're going to report on this stuff, like, whew, I just don't get it. So that's going to sum up tonight, folks. I can't wait. Which, by the way, if you are on the West Coast, Live Golf Adelaide is going to be coming on at 6:45 p.m. on Thursday night. Cannot wait. Let's fucking go. I am pumped for this. I can't wait for Live Golf Adelaide. The Zurich Classic, I think this is a great week, by the way, in terms of timing. Like, I know I said earlier, I wish Live Golf Adelaide was like for one of their championships and everything, and even had more prestige behind it. But what a week to schedule it when it's the Zurich Classic. So all eyes are going to be on Live Golf Adelaide. I'm pumped for it. Can't wait. Oh, and I even forgot to mention the TGL. So the Tomorrow Golf League, the indoor league with Rory and Tiger. Tiger's team is now set. So Tiger's got Tommy Kim. He's got Max Homa. And shit, I forgot the other one. I don't even have it in my notes. I saw it the other day. It was very softly announced. But guys, that's going to be another team event that is going to be pretty cool to experience and watch. I think people are going to be very surprised. They're like, oh, it's an indoor golf simulator. Oh, very cool. Whatever. That's stupid. It's like, no, this is actually going to be a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be super competitive. And I think people are really going to get into it. And it's going to be awesome to have all of this with all this technology in a tiny little space. I said tonight was going to be short. Fuck, it's almost an hour right now into this. I can't stop talking. But if there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So I do want to thank Swannies Golf once again, folks. Swannies Golf, go to swannies.co. Get yourself some Swannies gear. I even had a competitor of Swannies out there at the event. They go, man, I know I shouldn't say this, but damn, those are nice. What did I say? You know it. Good old Swannies out of Minnesota. These guys, the materials too. So I believe, is today Earth Day? I think today's Earth Day. And part of being Earth Day is I saw some posts from Swannies that basically Swannies recycles plastic water bottles and builds it into their actual clothing lines. So these are recycled materials. You are saving the planet by using or buying Swannies golf clothes. And they've got a ton of cool styles. I know a lot of guys are like, wow, you've got some loud clothes. And I'm like, I certainly do. And then I've got some that are more conservative. And for the tournament, if you take a look here, I'm going to put it back up. These shirts were pretty freaking solid, but at the same time, just a classic, clean, good look, and a lot of compliments that came out of it. Very soft, stretchy material. So again, go to swannies.co, use promo code PoleHookGolf25 at checkout in order to get 25% off your entire order at swannies.co. And it's priced reasonably. You don't have these $140 polos and so forth. So go on, get yourself some gear and represent for the Pole Hook Golf Podcast. But that is it for tonight. I am out. This is going to remain a live one, so you're going to have to go to Millions or over to YouTube in order to watch this episode, because tomorrow be releasing a new episode of the podcast with a VC in the golf space. So a venture capitalist that invests in golf companies. I picked his brain and want to share that with all of you. So that's going to be the podcast episode tomorrow. So definitely take a listen, and thank you for listening. And make sure to subscribe. Peace out, everybody.